it's our honor and privilege to present tonight's Courage Award to Mr. Chris Bey.
Every great story has a beginning. For Chris Bey, it began with a boy who had one dream: to become a professional wrestler. No plan B, no backup, just wrestling. From future stars of wrestling to the bright lights of TNA Impact, his rise felt unstoppable. Until the day everything changed.
October 26th, you're in the main event of Bound for Glory. The next day, October 27th, is when the accident occurred.
They told me it would be a 10 to 25% chance of walking again.
A devastating injury that could have ended everything. Most would have stopped. Chris Bey refused.
In my heart and in my mind, I thought I was never gonna walk again. I thought I was never gonna stand here again.
Through pain, through doubt, through every obstacle, he's fought, he's pushed, and he's made us all believe.
And because of each and every one of you,
this match is for Chris Bey.
And everyone watching at home, I beat the odds. I'm standing right here. Look at me now.
We honor that courage during this fight, a fight that has inspired the wrestling world and beyond.
Do you think you'll ever wrestle again?
Ladies and gentlemen,
never say never, right?
The 2025 Cauliflower Alley Club Courage Award recipient, the ultimate finesser, Chris Bey.
Hey y'all, how y'all doing? I'm grateful to be here because my first Cauliflower Alley Award was in 2003. And back then, Les Thatcher used to run these camps, we called them death camps, where he would stretch and torture young wrestlers for 3 days. And I'm glad to see that Les Thatcher isn't here. So I first met Chris Bey in 2016 when he came to FSW, which is Future Stars of Wrestling, to train. I was and still am one of the trainers there. And I instantly liked him, right? Kid's got charisma, he's got a good energy. He was a lot like my other students in a lot of ways, but very different in two specific ways that I can remember. One, the kid is a fantastic athlete. He's insane. He can move lightning fast, change directions on a dime, has insane body control, just incredible. But the other was his heart. Chris went head first into everything. And if you've ever trained someone to wrestle like, Dr. Tom, you realize that even great athletes can be hesitant and unsure of themselves when learning how to wrestle and move in the ring because, you're not supposed to throw yourself down on your back over and over and over. We move our bodies in ways that is complete opposite to nature, but not Chris. Chris took this business at full speed, head on. That's not to say that in the beginning he wasn't green as grass and didn't stink it up, because he was and he did, right? But no matter what, he went right back at it. He was the first one in the drills, and half the times I'd have to tell Chris, hey man, it's 9 o'clock, you ain't gotta go home, but you gotta get up out of here tonight. So I watched Chris's career develop over the next few years, and this is one story that I love to tell. Chris knows what it is. About 2017, 2018, I was working at Ring of Honor, and Ring of Honor was very hot at the time, had a hot faction going on. I'm sure you heard of them, called the Bullet Club, right? Everybody know the Bullet Club? So Chris was, it was always fun for me to come back to Vegas for Ring of Honor because my students would come and I get to show them like what it was to work for Ring of Honor. And Chris kind of pulls me to the side. He was working ring crew, and he says, hey man, you think I get some Bullet Club merch? You think I can get a Bullet Club shirt? So I looked at him, and he was Chris Strong at the time. He wasn't Chris Bey yet, because he got a little muscles, and he went and he bought some trunks, and he wanted to go show his muscles. So he was Chris Strong at the time, always showing his muscles. And I said, boy, you better stop worrying about Bullet Club merch and worry about some Chris Strong merch. And it's always a crazy trip because in 2021, Chris Bey was welcomed into the Bullet Club by Jay White, and now Chris Bey has got Bullet Club merch. I watched almost in awe as Chris Bey became loved and respected by the same people that I was loved and I had love and respect for in this business. I always call Chris my Padawan learner because he was my apprentice, right? But Chris is a 3-time TNA Tag Team Champion, a 1-time X Division Champion, and I think I'm very proud to say that Chris has become a Jedi in his own right. For a little while, a couple years back, I went from being Chris's mentor to Chris's coworker. We got a chance to ride together on the road at TNA or / Impact, whatever it is, and I really got a chance to add another layer to our relationship and friendship, and just to see how amazing Chris had become, not just as my student, but as a real full-blown professional. When I saw the news about Chris's accident on the internet, it was kind of vague, but it was very heavy, the weight, the tone, and I immediately prayed. I prayed that it was a blown knee or a torn shoulder, something that we could get in rehab for. We could, as soon as we get you here, we could start working on it, but obviously that wasn't the case. First time I FaceTimed Chris was after his surgeries, and he was in a halo, and you could tell he was really labored, and we joked, we laughed, we talked about keeping God in our life, and just really just had a good time. But Chris told me that he couldn't feel his legs, and the doctors had given him 10 to 25% chance of walking. And we joked and got off the phone, but as soon as we got off the phone, I broke down. I started crying real ugly tears, not just because my friend was hurt, but I know how much this business means to Chris. And I know, and I can only imagine what those nights in that hotel room after everybody left in Detroit must have been like for you, what your brain must have been like. We all know the story, right? Chris was given 10 to 15% chance of walking, but he didn't care about that. He said, I don't give a damn about that. I'm going to do what I do. I remember talking to some of the guys in Vegas saying, all right, well, Chris lives on the 2nd or 3rd floor. We're going to try to get him to a 1st floor apartment. And Chris put a stop to all that. Chris said, I'm not getting in no 1st floor, because Chris knew that he would walk again. He went from a wheelchair to crutches to walking flat out in less than a year's time after being given 10 to 20% chance of ever walking again. About a month ago, I bugged out because I saw Chris and his girlfriend Brittany working out in the gym. He amazes me. I'm in complete awe of Chris Bey. He is a literal walking testimony of what God can do. Ladies and gentlemen, I am extremely honored to present to you the 2025 recipient of the Cauliflower Alley Courage Award, because I've never met anybody with more courage than Chris Bey. Chris Bey.
First things first, I love you, Kenny. I love you so much. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. Wow. For those of you who don't know me, I'll introduce myself real quick. I am the ultimate finesser, your girl's favorite wrestler, Chris Bey. But I'll talk to you as Chris real quick. We all love this business so much, and I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for the staff for this prestigious award. I mean, all I've ever wanted to do since I was 3 years old was be a professional wrestler. I saw wrestling. I became addicted to it. I didn't want to do anything else. At one point, I wanted to be the first black president, but Obama beat me to it, so went out the window quick. I just wanted to be a professional wrestler, and my dad was like, all right, you'll grow out of it one day. And he'd take me to all the WWE events when they'd come into town, and my mom, she was like, all right, you'll grow out of it one day. And eventually they were like, all right, stop playing with action figures. So I started collecting DVDs and watching the DVDs all the time, and they couldn't stop that. I'd go out and skateboard with my friends, but eventually I was like, all right, this is a little too dangerous. I want to one day pursue wrestling. So sorry, guys, I'm quitting skateboarding. No more skateboarding for me. And I'd stay in the house and just play with action figures and watch the DVDs and try to learn psychology as much as I can just from watching the DVDs. I was so invested in professional wrestling. And I was like, all right, I'm 5'8", a buck at best when I get on the scale, so I'm gonna have to do a lot of lifting and get in the gym. And everyone looked at me and was like, yeah, you're kind of crazy. You think you're gonna be a professional wrestler, right? You're on the small side. And I was like, well, it's been done and I'll make this happen. I gotta make it happen. There's nothing else I want in life. This has to be my life. So to move to Vegas and pursue this and get to learn, I did research on the school, and I specifically picked FSW because it had people like Kenny King, because it had people like D'Lo Brown, people like Simbodi, people that I knew I could learn from and learn some quality knowledge from, and 5 days a week training, okay, I can dedicate my whole life to it. So I moved here and I had nothing, and the one job I got, I wouldn't take shifts because it would interrupt with training class, so I became broke real fast and was sleeping on the kitchen cove in a buddy's apartment. But it was fine because I had wrestling, and I always had wrestling. I had wrestling before I had wrestling. So to go out there and main event Bound for Glory with the Hardys and the System, you know, biggest pay-per-view of the year for TNA, I'm at the top of the world. I'm in the best shape of my life. The next night, I'm laying on my back and I can't move. And you know, there's probably a couple thousand people in the building, but it's as silent as it is now. And I know everybody's staring at me. And I've never been hurt before, so I don't know what I'm feeling or what I'm supposed to feel. But I know it's not right. And all I want to do in those following hours until I got into surgery was to not feel, even though I couldn't feel. It doesn't make sense, but I was in so much pain, I just wanted to not feel, and I wanted to be all right. And when I woke up the next day, and I couldn't feel, but I also couldn't feel the pain anymore, I was just blessed. I was fortunate. I was thankful to God that I still was alive. And the first thing that went through my mind was, okay, this is day one. What do I do from here on out? Like, what does my life look like? How does what does my family look like down the line? I want to have a family one day. And fortunately, I had the greatest support system through the connections I've built with my addiction and love to wrestling and making everybody my peers now, that the world was there for me. And my girlfriend was there for me and didn't leave my side, which was so selfless of her. She was also a wrestler and dealing with an ACL injury, and instead of doing her own rehab, she's spending weeks upon weeks with me while I'm in the hospital. I can't do anything. I'm having to relearn how to use my hands. It's just literally ground zero. But everyone's telling me how much love I'm getting online from the wrestling world. And at the end of the day, we're all just humans, and we all just want to be loved. And all I ever wanted to do was be loved. I was the guy who wanted to be a wrestler. Ha ha, it's funny. And now I'm the guy who is no longer able to walk because of wrestling, but wrestling is uplifting me and putting me on my feet. It was amazing. It was amazing. Hold on. Amen, indeed. God is great. Sometimes we get a little distracted and we don't keep up that relationship we have with God. But I had nothing but time in that portion of my life to make sure that my relationship was the strongest possible with God. And every day we spoke, and every day I listened. And I knew that because I was alive, I had a purpose, and I might not know my purpose now, but I'll figure it out over time. And when they told me 10 to 25%, for a while it rocked me. For 48 hours it rocked me, but after that I was in. I was like, okay, what's next? And therapy 6 days a week and 3 hours a day, and whenever they had extra sessions, I was in the extra sessions, and everything that I could do to get back on my feet, because I knew if I had more than 0% chance, then I had a chance, and I had to fight for it, and I fought for it. And I'm standing here today in front of all of you, and I love all of you, and I'm so grateful for this moment because wrestling gave me this. Wrestling gives us all this. And I knew I wasn't going to prepare a speech or anything for this. I just had to speak straight from the heart, which a lot of people are doing. I don't know if I'll get back in the ring again, but I know I'll try. If God's willing and it's in the plans, I'll try. They said, don't do it. I said, okay, well, we'll see. I'm a little different than that. I'm a little crazier than that. I'll leave it out with this. The award is called the Courage Award, right? When I was a kid, I really liked this cartoon, and it was called Courage the Cowardly Dog. It's pretty funny. He was the scaredest dog ever. Like, he was terrified of everything, and the weirdest things would always come and try to attack his family. And no matter how scared he was, he put on his brave pants, and he'd get to work to protect his family. But he'd always look right at the hard camera, and he'd say, the things I do for love. This is the thing I did for love. I broke my neck, and I'm standing here, and I love every part of it. I have zero regrets. Wrestling gave me everything. You give me everything. I love the CAC. I love you all. God is my hero. Thank you all. I appreciate you.